Welcome to our backyard. This is the Backyard Philosophy Podcast. We are two friends having a discussion after everyone else has passed out or gone to bed. Grab a drink and listen as we discuss everything from automation, space exploration, and why the meaning of life is 42. Mike, we're going to talk about two of my favorite things, fire and birds.
Oh, I thought you were going to say trees. I got real nervous there.
Byproduct. But I got some Bud Light here. Before we get too far into it, what are you drinking?
Drinking some Clyde Mays and feeling pretty good.
So we're going to go to the Australian outback, heading down under. Fire in Australia, just like everywhere else, is a natural part of the ecosystem. Fire gets rid of some species, allows new species to come in. Certain species need fire to survive. They rely on it. And out here you can see smaller fire. When I say out here, I work around prescribed fire wildfires in the American West. You can see birds that just looking for prey. Good thing that fire does. Animals don't want to burn, so they're going to leave their hidey holes or hunker down to get away from it. Well, birds know that, so they'll fly around looking for all the mice and lizards and stuff that are running for their life. Australian birds took it a step further. Australian birds realized, well, a few of their predators, the species of bird are kites, which is what most people would just call like a falcon or something like that, they're referred to as kites, which I think is like, it's not as intimidating name as like a falcon or a raptor for like a bird of prey, an eagle, you know? Like we had a kite land in our yard, scared the shit out of all the birds at our feeders. And I was looking it up like, oh man, what the fucking badass bird is this? I'm like, oh, it's whatever kite. I'm like, man, it's just not an intimidating enough term for a bird of prey.
Yeah, if it's got talons, you got to give it some kind of ferocious name.
Exactly. So these birds realize that fires scare animals. And so they'll fly around ahead of the burn and pick off some animals. But what happens when that fire starts to die? Well, those birds will pick up something that's burning, carry it over half a mile away, drop it, start a new fire.
I have a name for these new birds. Billy Joel's. We didn't start the fire for nothing? Come on, that's funny. They started
the fire. That is funny. But I thought you actually had like, they're commonly called firehawks, which I think is
that's a way better. That's a badass name.
Exactly. So a few species of birds in Australia have been reported to pick up burning embers and spread them. And what's interesting about this is, one, it shows that humans aren't the only animal that uses fire for their own benefit. It makes birds seem a lot smarter. The fact that they can find something, that's part of its burning, part's not, so that they don't burn their talons off. And that they know where to drop something to light fire. So it makes birds seem a lot more intelligent. The species that have been observed to do it are the black kite, whistling kites, and brown falcons. And they pick up burning sticks and move them somewhere else. Now, why this is quote-unquote new information is this is information that's been reported for a long time. Aboriginal groups in Australia have talked about it, and other people have talked about it, but it hasn't been seen by a scientist, so it's not...
If there's no pictures, it ain't happen.
Exactly. But it's been recorded by a guy, and so it's been published, so now it's credible science. 2017, still relatively new, but not really talked about. And I heard about this when I was in school, so I was in school around that time, and it's one of those things that is kind of like an urban legend. Like people talk about it, but you don't really believe it. And it's still kind of that way because it doesn't happen. I mean, it could. They're trying to figure out if it happens in other parts of the world or just Australia because fire is so common there in the savannas. So it could happen somewhere else. We just don't know about it. Some people have said they've seen it, but it's kind of like Bigfoot. A lot of people have said they've seen Bigfoot, but who really knows?
I'll be honest with you, Nick. I already knew about this bird coming in. I thought it was common knowledge. I did not know it was still a debated topic.
I mean, I think people knew about it, but it was so rare. I think it's more common than we think, but it's just not it's not something that was actively endorsed by the scientific community. But what's interesting is that it's not just the scientific community. People who do prescribed burns in Australia, they take into account what happens if, a bird's going to drop some fire somewhere else when they plan all their burns and stuff, which I thought was pretty interesting, but still wasn't seen as scientifically accepted. And I mean, you're always planning for spot fires, but a lot of times when you're doing a prescribed burn, you're not really in an environment where a firebrand is going to land and start. A lot of times you have to put fire on the ground.
Is it bad? I'm just thinking of Mongolian during war against China, where they would set animals on fire and send them into the town to set the things on fire. I kind of want an army of these birds, because why not?
And so, yeah, so this is posing an interesting problem for Australia because, one, kind of like we talked about in our wildfire episode, suppression of fire has been a huge part of the human, I don't know what you'd call it, manifest destiny. We've been stopping fire in the United States for a long time because it's not good for agriculture, for growing trees, it ruins crops. But it is a natural part of the environment that needs to be there. And because of that, there's a lot more fuel, so fires burn hotter. And people in Australia for a long time have been killing these birds because they spread fire and as part of fire suppression, because ranchers don't want their ranch burned. And the problem with that is they're just killing all birds that look like these birds, including some endangered species. But now that this has been observed, I haven't seen much, but I'm curious how that's going. I mean, I doubt it's going to change, a rancher's opinion on what these birds do. But I'm curious now if they're going to be more protected and more a part of conservation there than before, seeing as their role in helping maintain natural fire behavior in Australia.
I have two questions. Where is this happening in Australia? Is it like the West Coast, where is this?
Northern Australia.
And I don't expect you to know this answer, but just out of curiosity, do you think this is a learned adaptation, like learned from humans, or is it something they learned from themselves?
Well, I couldn't tell you. The Aboriginal people have said that birds have been doing this for thousands of years, and part of the way that they're trying to document these birds is having cooking fires and seeing if the birds will grab some embers. So
wait a minute. Wait, I'm fucking up. I need a new career where my job is to barbecue and watch birds.
Excuse me, I am the bird person here. I'm the cast iron enthusiast. This is my neck of the woods. Outback, I guess. But yeah, that would be a pretty sweet job. I need a bunch of money so I can go into the middle of nowhere and cook a bunch of food.
Sit by a bonfire.
See if birds
with
come.
binoculars.
Yeah. You don't have to sit by you don't need binoculars for the most part. They're just going to come to you. You should be able to see them if you're not too drunk.
Boy, Nick, we're messing up.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many cool jobs out there. But you got to work hard to, I guess, get into that field. And then you have to work hard to convince people to give you a bunch of money to do that is important. And then I guess you probably can't have a personality like we do where it would seem suspicious if I asked to do that. But yeah, birds going out, burning things, they're just like us. We're all arsonists on the inside. Thanks for listening to the Backyard Philosophy Podcast. We rarely finish a podcast without missing a point we wanted to bring up, so let us know what we forgot. And if you have a topic you want us to talk about, let us know at Backyard Philosophy on Instagram and Backyard Philosophy Podcast